so set up so cozily to have a heart to heart talk with you tonight. And it's because one of my videos kind of went viral on TikTok and Instagram recently. And it's this short video that has a caption on top that says, growing up is realizing that there will be some friends that you will only see once every few years, and you learn to be okay with it because you know that whatever happens, you will always have each other's back. It is a realization that I had recently. And in fact, I was quite emotional about it because my best friend since I was 8 years old was back in town. We have been on long distance relationships since we graduated from high school, and it has always been that way. I mean, except for like back in 2019, there was a short period of time when we were both in similar seasons in our lives. So she was staying over at my place for maybe a couple months. But other than that, we have always been on long distance relationships where we would meet up once every few years. And on top of that, it's not just this one particular best friend. Because of the fact that I come from a very small hometown, it is quite common for people to leave my hometown and relocate to bigger cities to build a career for themselves after they graduate. So I kind of like separated from my high school friends since high school. And then I traveled to Canada to study. So I did have a foreign, further education experience. So some of my friends chose to stay in those countries, or some of them relocated further because of marriage or different reasons. So I am on long distance relationship with most of my close friends. And yeah, they are like close friends, not just acquaintances. Like I'm in the season of planning my wedding, and I already know that my friends are actually flying in from UK, Canada, Germany, Singapore, like different places of the world. And I mean, these are friends that are so close that I know they would try their best to come to my wedding. But anyways, that is my reality. Like I have a lot of friends that I am in long distance relationship with, and I think I'm quite surprised to see that there were so many people that could resonate with what I wrote. And like by many people, just to give you context, my TikTok usually gets like 200 to 300, or sometimes in good days, like 700, 900 views. But this particular TikTok has already gone to like 500K views by now, like, maybe in 2 weeks' time, in a week or 2 weeks. And I think my Reels is at about 300K views too. Like it's a lot of views. And I don't know how the algorithm works. It just somehow managed to capture these people. And because there's also people who followed me from that post. So I'm not too sure like what this means to me on social media, but I kind of want to go a little bit deeper about this topic today in hopes that for those of you who are new to my community, who are new to my platform, I assume that some of you have very similar experiences as I do. And I want to talk about this whole long distance friendship stuff because I do feel like I don't talk enough about having long distance friendships. And I also realized that it could be quite a lonely journey. Like there are many sucky things about having long distance friendships, but we don't really talk about it because we also know that having such a problem, it's because we are so lucky to have good friends that we know would always have our back. But it just sucks that they are really far away from us, right? So it's kind of like a first world problem. In a way, I hope that by sharing about the things that I think about, or by sharing about my experience, you would feel a little bit less alone in your adulthood journey or in managing friendships and relationships as an adult. I think the first thing that I feel being in long distance friendship is that as much as you love your friends and you love that you have this friendship, you do feel lonely sometimes. Like, I feel like I'm someone who is already very lucky that I have an amazing fiance who is also my best friend right now. And we both are like extroverts and we always have a lot of social plans on our calendar and we hang out with a lot of amazing friends. But when it comes to people that I feel comfortable talking about, maybe certain tough stuff about like personal, emotional experiences and stuff like that. Like, for example, if I get into a fight with Kevin and I wanted to rant with a friend, or maybe it is about a family matter that only friends who were from my high school would know because they've met my family before. Things like that. Sometimes it's really hard for me to open up to talk to these friends that I still meet these days because they didn't know that part about my life, right? So there would be some topics or conversations that you would want to have with your besties. But the thing about being in long distance relationships, especially if you live in countries where the time zones are so different, like, dude, no one ever told me that the biggest thing about long distance relationship is not distance, it's actually the time difference. Like, especially if you live in Malaysia and chances are maybe your friends relocated to Europe, which would be like a 7-8 hours time different, or if they go to North America, it's like 16 hours ish, or between 12 to 16 hours difference. And it's quite hard to match the timing. Like, imagine feeling that you want to open up your heart and tell your friends about something that you're really struggling with. But you look into your clock and you realize that, oh, it's like 8 a.m. in the morning for them. You knew that they're getting ready to go to work. So it's hard for you to like just say you want to call them and rant because you know that it's going to kind of like, help, like make them start the day really hard or tough on that day. So you avoid doing it, like you want to avoid doing it, right? So I mean, time zone is one thing and there are many other reasons, and that's what I'm trying to say. Like, as much as you love your friend and you know that you have each other's backs, sometimes the timing is just not right for you to open up. And so having long distance friendships can feel really lonely sometimes. And the next thing that I want to talk about is actually about this comment that kept popping back up onto my video. And a lot of people actually like this comment. And like, about these friendships, these long distance friendships and having each other's backs, the question was, I wonder if they feel the same way. And I gotta admit that I've actually have this same thoughts before. I believe at this point of my life, I was maybe going through PMS. Like, I was feeling really dark and emotional, and there was a lot of negative self talks in my head. And I was just feeling extra lonely with everything, all the problems that I was dealing with. And I felt really lonely. I felt like there was no one that I could call to talk about my problems. And I started wondering if these people that I consider to be my closest friend, that I so treasure, that I know that I personally would drop every single thing in a heartbeat if they are struggling. At that point, I wondered if they would do the same thing for me. And I mean, I think because at that point I was just in a lot of pain and I was feeling so lonely. I I had some negative thoughts like, is it just a one-sided relationship? Do they actually feel the same way? And it was a very like negative place to be in. But there's one thing that I did realize from that experience, and it was that it wasn't just on them that they were not there for me. The problem was actually myself because I am that kind of person that finds it very hard for me to actually open up and talk to my friends about my problems. And I think it's because I'm just used to being the strong one who is there for my friends. And I'm just used to being like the cheerful, positive one that's always really encouraging. I find it harder for me to be vulnerable sometimes, especially like the examples that I was saying, like, especially when I know that they are busy or they themselves are going through tough times or like, reasons like that. I find it hard to open up. But then if we don't open up about our problems, how are our friends going to know that we are struggling? And how would they then know that they should be giving us more comfort and attention and just be the listening ear that we need? Like, in order for a friend to be there for you, you need to first be able to open up yourself to be there for them or to open up the door to let them help you, like actually ask for help if you want them to be there for me. Like, that was something that I reflected and I realized at that point. And the solution that I came up with it is, if at that moment when I was emotional and I felt like it would be not nice to open up to my friend, like if they were traveling or if they were just going to work, what I would do is, I know that I would be able to deal with that situation no matter what. So, what I do is, after I was done dealing with it and I've reflected about it, I would still open up about this problem, maybe in a long text or a voice message to my friend when I knew that she was already, home from the holidays or she's not so stressed out at work anymore. And I would tell her that, hey, so actually, like a couple weeks ago, this actually happened and I wanted to call you, but I knew you were in holidays. But I just wanted you to know that this happened and I doubt all right. Just figured that you would want to know and you would want to stay updated with everything that was going on. And I realized that when I start to open up more about whatever that I was going through, I do feel that my friends understand what I was going through more. And it helps them to be more aware that sometimes I would need the attention from them too. And in fact, there's something that I learned that I want to share with you. And that is actually to make the effort to make phone calls or organize group calls with your friend, or even just text your friends a little bit more on a day to day basis, like send them funny memes or reels or TikToks or stuff like that, just to stay in touch. Because I'm the kind of person that I'm a very bad texter, okay? I'm just not used to like always checking in with people and stuff like that because I'm already very busy at work and everything else. And I would feel bad to text someone a lot because I don't want to be disturbing them. But I do realize that sometimes we just worry too much, and perhaps somebody has to initiate all these conversations, right? So, because one thing that one of my besties started doing is she started making more like long phone calls with me just to update about her lives to me and just to find out more about what has been up in my own life. Like, the phone calls usually go for about 30 to 45 minutes on a weekday night for me, and it was like maybe in the afternoon for her, and she's a little bit more free from work. And during this time was when we just really talk. Like, sometimes there's some updates, sometimes it's ranting about certain situation or just discussing life. And I love these phone calls. This is something new that we started doing maybe a year ago. And she initiated it. Like, she would just ask me like, hey, you free for a call tonight? Let's catch up. And we would have this phone call once every few months. Like, it's not very often. We are not used to texting a lot or calling a lot. But that was a very good gesture that I really appreciate because I get to feel that even though we don't keep in touch as frequent as we'd like, I feel like she's always making the effort to connect with me and to know what's up in my life. And I really, really appreciate it. But yeah, this was something that definitely needed some time to get used to, because I remember at first when she started asking if I'm free and if we could make a call, I would be thinking like, oh my God, what is happening in her life? Like, is she all right? Like, should I be there for you? Like, I kind of panic every time she asked for a call previously, but I managed to actually like eventually realize that it's just regular catch up and I can say no if I'm busy, but we can reschedule and make things happen again. And yeah, like those were the things that I realized that I have to put in effort in managing my long term, long distance relationship. And like I said, we when we became friends with our friends, at that point we probably are in the same location and we didn't sign up for this long distance relationship thing. And my guess is you usually get into these relationships when you were younger because maybe you were in high school or college, but something happened eventually and one of you had to relocate, right? So circumstances change. And I feel like one thing that I've accepted right now at this stage of my life, like as I'm 31, like we are about 10 years past graduating from college and we are experiencing more of life right now. And I have to say that as much as I have so much faith in all of my friendships with this amazing close friends that I have also realized that you may eventually feel a little bit more distant as you get older. Like, sure, we will have each other's back. We have been through some biggest milestones in our lives together, and we are updated about each other's life and all that stuff. But the reality is, in most of the time in our life, like 360 days in a year, we are spending time in different places, different countries, spending time with different social circles, you know, even living in different climate and different time zones and experiencing very different lives in different corners of the world. It definitely may come a point that we don't really get each other as much anymore because our lives are just so different. I have not felt that big impact for me right now, but I do expect that that may happen to me someday. And I just have to be ready for it. And one more thing to really think about is that eventually, when both of you find a life partner and start to get busier in your relationship, the time that you get to spend with your best friend, you know, even when you visit each other, it's still going to be lesser or shorter. And this is something that I actually realized during my friend's recent trip back because prior to this, the last few times that we met, she was always single or by herself. And the good thing for me was she really got along very, very well with my fiance. So it's almost like family. But this time around, she brought a new boyfriend, and it was his first time ever in Southeast Asia and in this country. And she had to host him a little bit more. So we didn't get to have as much one on one time as I would have expected. And I remember that it was quite an adjustment for both of us. For her, it's really managing her expectation and time for the trip. And for me, it's also managing my expectation on the alone time that I get to spend with her. Like, there's no one's fault here. Like, everyone's excited that he's here. I'm glad that I got to meet him. I don't blame him at all. It's just that it's the circumstances that we are in right now. It is our current reality. And I cannot imagine if one day either of us have kids and like multiple kids, like it's going to be tough for us to meet up and really, you know, spend that alone time just as best friends together. And I cried thinking about this when my friend went back this time around because I realized that, wow, we are growing up now and it is just how life is, and I just had to accept it. But yeah, acceptance. The last note that I have over here is actually that you just gotta accept that this is now your reality and you make the best out of it. Like at this rate, I'm even ready to accept that if either of my best closest friends from my university days, from my primary school days, that maybe one of them might not be able to be there for my wedding, because I know that to travel so far, it's so much money. We all have our own jobs now that we are responsible for. A lot of things could happen, and I know that as much as they would all want to be here for my wedding, and I would love to have them here, I cannot expect everyone to just give in everything and be there. And I cannot just expect everything to be perfect and to be in the way that I would love it to. Like, I just have realized that this may all be my new reality. But having said that, that will not stop me from trying my best to still stay in touch with my friends by putting in the effort to still drop that meme in the group chat and checking in with everybody's, latest update. And if anything, the fact that these long distance relationships are getting more and more precious as we get older, this is also one of my motivations to make more money in my life so that I can travel whenever to wherever I want just to spend time with my friends. So that is our current reality now, and that is how I've been viewing or thinking about this long distance friendships that I've been having in my life. That's all that I have to talk about today's episode. Like, these are just the things that I figured right now about my friendships now that I'm 31 years old, like based on my current experiences. And I would keep living my life. I would keep observing my friendship and how things have gone and continue to embrace them and really just be super grateful about this friendship and just keep giving more and more love into these friendships. And perhaps one day, if I have a new realization or new learning, I would come back to you again and talk more about this in that specific episode in this podcast. Like, maybe I'll come back to you when I'm 40 and tell you like what I learned about friendship by the time I'm 40 years old. So yeah, I just wanted you to know that you are definitely not alone in this whole long distance friendship thing and the struggle that you have to go through to maintain these beautiful friendships that you have. I am sending you lots and lots of love and comfort right now, and I'll see you in my next episode. Goodbye.